To make any muscle grow, it requires you to train it with enough volume for it to grow. So volume basically is sets times reps times weight. So how much training stress do you give that muscle? Everyone's used to the classic 3 sets of 10, which works for a while and it works as a beginner, and it may work for some people, but eventually you're going to have to graduate from that, and a muscle will require more volume in order for it to grow. So 4 sets of 10, 5 sets of 10, 6 sets of 10 even, 5 sets of 12, 4 sets of 12, 4 sets of 15. These are all combinations that allow you to increase the volume. Know that the more reps you do, the less weight you have to do, because you obviously won't be able to use the same amount of weight for 15 as you would for 3. How much volume you dedicate to a specific body part will depend on the muscle itself and how much training you're able to recover from. The amount of training that a muscle can recover from, or a muscle can take, depends on the type of muscle that it is. Certain muscles recover way faster than others and can be trained more frequently, like your shoulders, for example, or your calves, or even your forearms. Muscles like those, because they're smaller and because maybe they're more used to being used that often, like we use our shoulders every day and they're kind of endurance muscles, like we always have to reach and stuff. Use your calves every day. Every time you take a walk or take a step, your calves are working, so they're made to take a lot of damage. They're made to do a lot of work. So in order for them to grow, they also require a lot of work. Other muscles, on the other hand, for example, your abdominal muscles. So people do crunches and stuff. How often on a daily basis do you actually crunch your abdominal muscles? Not very often. So the main function of the core, this is like a tangent, but the main function of the core is to stabilize your spine. It's not meant to, its main function is not to crunch or create abs, right? It's made to stabilize your spine. It's supposed to resist rotation and flexion and extension. So it doesn't really get a lot of flexion forces during the day, so it doesn't require much. It's a new stimulus, flexing your abs or contracting or doing crunches is a new stimulus that you don't get every day, so it doesn't require as much training. So you can probably get away with training your abs like 2 to 3 times a week. Depends on what your goal is, but you can get a larger stimulus from doing that as opposed to training your shoulders 1 to 2 times a week. Certain muscles require a lot of volume to grow, so like your legs and your back. Because they're such giant muscles, they require a lot of volume. So in your quads, there's 4 different, hence quad, there's 4 different muscles that work, right? So they all share the workload. In your back, there's your lats, there's all the muscles of your upper back. It's pretty hard to overtrain those muscles, so they can take a lot of beating, they can take a lot of volume, and thus the volume in your training has to be higher. You can't just do all the volume that the muscle requires to grow in one session. So you wouldn't do like 10 sets of 10, although there are programs like that where you do 10 sets of 10, but your best bet is to increase the frequency of training that muscle. So if I were to, for example, right now I'm focusing on my arms and my back, I'm going to increase the frequency or the number of times I train my arms and my back during the week. Usually I was training them 3 times a week or 2 times. I'm going to up it to at least 3, 4, possibly even 5 for my back because they're such large muscles. But I'm going to aim for a higher frequency. I'm going to train them more frequently. They still have time to recover, and I get to spread that volume over 3, 4, 5 days as opposed to trying to chunk them all in one day. Another benefit of that is that my workouts will be more efficient. If I were going to try and do all the volume in one day and do like 8 arm exercises or like 8 back exercises, by the time I get to the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th exercise, I'm going to be dead tired. Those exercises are going to be almost useless because the weight that I'm going to use is not going to be heavy enough to stimulate growth and I'm just gonna be kind of going through the motions. So if I split it up, I can hit 3, maybe 4 exercises really hard and then done, and then recover, and then hit another 4 exercises hard multiple times a week to stimulate lots of growth. One more thing before I get back to my training. The lifts that you use will also affect the volume that you use. So although you want to train with high volume, certain lifts cannot be trained with such a high volume because they cause a lot of stress to your body. So barbell squats, deadlifts, like heavy bench presses, those are all, although they do work those muscles, the legs, chest, back, your arms, they do so at the expense of your nervous system. So although the muscles are getting worked, your nervous system is going to take a beating because the weight is so heavy, and you're allowed to, like, it allows your body to use more weight. It's more stressful and requires more recovery. So you should take that into account. My advice for you is leave all the heavy weights for those big lifts. And when you go down to the second, third, fourth exercises in your program where you use dumbbells or maybe cables or kettlebells, whatever you're going to do, or body weight, that's when you should really drop the weight, focus on the muscle rather than just pumping out reps and trying to increase the weight on lifts that you're not, like, it doesn't matter how much you dumbbell row, right? Obviously your goal is to get stronger, but you're really using that exercise to target a specific muscle. So think of it like you're contracting the muscle against a resistance rather than you're just going through the motion. Drop the weight, like I said in a previous video, I'm dropping the weight on a lot of my exercises just to make sure I'm using the proper technique and using my muscle to do the work, going through full ranges of motion, not getting into like an ego lifting competition with myself, and just trying to stimulate the muscle.